The John Sayles School of Fine Arts presents Studio 17 News with lead anchors Jessica Zalesny and Michelle Gagliardi.
Welcome to Studio 17 News. I'm Michelle Gagliardi.
And I'm Jessica Zalesny. Our first story this evening focuses on some major changes at Schenectady High School.
Stephen White brings us a special report.
Like many of you out there, I've heard very little about the changes in the schedule next year at Schenectady High School. Administration has been reluctant to comment because plans are yet to be finalized. Some students and teachers are apprehensive about the new changes. We have compiled as much information as we could on the subject. This is Channel 17 special report.
This is Channel 17 News Special Report with your reporter, Stephen White. Today's top story: changes at Schenectady High School. The current rotating mod schedule at Schenectady High School works on an 8-day basis: A Day, B Day, all the way to H Day. School District Superintendent Eric Ely tells us more on the possible changes.
When we restructure the high school, one of the things we're looking at is the high school schedule. The high school schedule right now is a rotating schedule. It rotates every 8 days through a sequence of schedules, through a sequence of daily schedules that are never basically the same. So what we're going to do is part of our restructuring plan for the high school will involve changing that to another schedule. Now generally when you do that, it's pretty much a big undertaking because people need to learn to teach in different settings and need to learn to learn in different settings. Right now you may have a period that's 90 minutes long or 60 minutes long in the rotating modular schedule. When you go to a smaller or a straight schedule, for example, a straight 7, straight 8, straight 9 schedule, you're talking about the more periods you have, the shorter the periods are. So the more time people have in passing and those kind of things. There's no decision made on what kind of schedule we will go to. The only decision that's been made is that we won't have the rotating modular schedule anymore.
We called up Amanda Vernon, current student at Schenectady High School. Tell us more about how a straight 8 schedule would work.
Well, we had the same class every single day at the same exact time. We had every class except for gym. We only had A and B days. Like in this school, there's 8 different letter days and we only had A and B. So it was kind of easier because you never got confused about where you were going. You always had the same class and they were much shorter, but you had it every day. So there's pros and cons to a straight block schedule. I think it'd be easier for like the freshmen who come in and they don't know where they're going and things are always changing. So it'd be easier for them, but like classes are a lot shorter. They're about 42 minutes to 45 minutes. And like it seems like class goes faster and the teachers wouldn't be able to put a lot into one class, whereas with an hour you can get more done. Instead of a little bit at a time, you're getting a lot done at once.
We also sat down with Ty Doe, a current student at the high school, to hear his opinion on the straight block schedule.
Well, I believe in the rotating mod schedule only because not everybody's going to be a math teacher or a scientist. They're going to want to do their individual interests for what they like to do as a job. With the straight mod schedule, you get less electives.
So as you can see, the students know very little. We also sat down with a few of the teachers in the building to get their opinion on the matter.
The whole idea of having a straight 8 appeals to me as a math teacher because I think meeting the students every day for 40 or 45 minutes is much more productive than meeting them 3 out of 4 days for a complete hour, because you kind of get like 1 1/4 lessons done as opposed to being able to do 1 complete lesson every single day.
And the students need to practice that skill before you keep on giving them new additional information to learn.
A lot of the information at this point I think is hearsay. We've had, I think we had one meeting where we got information on what the restructuring was going to look like, and I think one of the main points was that the schedule would be changed. And then really I've just been hearing word of mouth from different teachers, different possibilities.
However, the idea of it not rotating at all, I think the students that don't get up in the morning and don't come to school before 9 or 10 o'clock, you're going to miss them every single day, period 1 and 2 for the entire year, and they're just going to be, they're just going to be
get behind or like give up for that
right. So
particular
they're going to
class.
be failures, and they're going to repeat, unfortunately.
I take a little bit of exception to that because it's an expectation that I would have as an employer that somebody would show up every day for work at the same time. For example, if I hire you to work for me, I would expect you to be on the job the same time every day, probably. So if you're going to be habitually late, whether you do the same thing in the morning every day or not, if you're habitually late, it's going to be a problem. So we need to help students learn that being on time is extremely important. It's a skill. It's one of those soft skills that employers expect you to know. They expect you to be on class, in this case, in class on time, regardless of what class you have. So the idea that we rotate the day and the student who's late every day only misses that first period class every fourth day, I think is absolutely the wrong way to look at how you work with students. I would expect students to be on time every day. So it doesn't make a difference what schedule is. If somebody's coming in late every day, that's a problem. Because in the real world, when you have a job, you're expected to be on the job at the same time every day. I'll use teachers for an example. Teachers don't have, if they don't have the same first period every day, they're still expected to be at school. They're, whether they have you first period or whether they have another student first period, another group of students first period, they would be expected to be on their job in this way. Students, this is your job, to be at school first period of every day on time. We move the day back, for one thing, to get students a little bit of an edge into getting there. Starts at 7:45 now or 7:50. It's just a skill that students have to learn, being there where they're supposed to be on time.
On top of it, I remember the other day I had a student that is in choir, and he realized, I don't have choir today. And he was really disappointed because that for him is something that makes his entire day when he goes down and has choir. So if we start cutting electives, there's going to be some students that all of a sudden that one little thing that got them through the rest of their classes, if that's all said and gone, and that could really impact their attendance and their motivation overall in school.
In our time sitting down with Superintendent Ely, you explained to us how administration was going to decide what changes to make.
Well, decisions are made in restructuring. Ultimately, the superintendent, myself, I'm responsible for putting together a restructuring plan. Now, I've got a large number of teachers in the high school, several parents. We've got also a number of administrators working on this project, about 30 different people working on the front line, what we call our core team. But right now what we have is those people are out talking to different constituencies. I have a number of people talking to groups of students, and you may have heard some of students who have been talked to about these issues, getting their ideas, getting input. We're talking to parents, we're talking to former students, we're talking to dropouts. We're talking to students who weren't successful to find out why they weren't successful and what we can do to change, because the schedule is just one part of the high school. There's a lot of the high school that is not working for our students. If it was, we would have a lot higher graduation rate. And so we think we need to change a lot of things, but we want to talk to people that have been there and been living in that environment for a long time to find out what ideas they have for improving the high school. So ultimately the decision will come down to a gathering of these ideas and a kind of a look at what works best, what we think work best for our students from a research standpoint, but also from a pragmatic, practical Schenectady standpoint.
Consequently, these reform committees have only been recently made. How much influence they'll have on the change in the schedules is yet to be seen.
Channel 17 News, this is Steve White, signing off.
This has been Channel 17 News Special Report.